Hello! Quickly butting in, this video was recorded before I left for Japan to commentate, basically, so it's before the product announcement, so some things, especially when I talk about Type 3 gift markers and stuff, obviously aren't very applicable, but you can take that as a kind of, this might happen 2021 or something, but still, I mean, it's interesting theories and things, so I wanted to keep it all in. And the other thing before we start is we now have 3 channel members, so big thanks to Chad Laiske, Crowned Clown, and Very Flores for becoming channel members. And if you want to become a channel member too, then there is a join button next to the subscribe button down there, so do feel free if you want to. But that's it for me, back to your usual video. So today I'm going to be making a 2020 wish list. 2020 has already begun, but only a little bit. And so there are a few things that I really want to point out. I am going, almost none of my videos are actually scripted, but I like to take out these bullet points. But today I'm literally just going freestyle with the actual ideas that I personally feel are quite strong, because I think these are things that some people might, hopefully will agree on. So without any further ado, let's just get into it. So, the first thing for me is, when I try to make one of these wish lists or things I hope happen throughout the year, I always try to look at it in a sense of, well, what went wrong the previous year? And so, I'm going to first go for a more positive one that's not really based on anything from the previous year. But the first thing that I want to mention is that Vanguard Zero is releasing very soon in English. It's already been out in Japan for a little while. And what they do in Japan is that they have local tournaments with Vanguard Zero. And so you're able to basically get physical promo cards for playing in Vanguard Zero, and I'm sure eventually they might do, you get PR codes to enter into the game that you can do with the sleeves, for example, that you then get from playing in these tournaments. So I think that would be very nice if, maybe they don't do them, for example, in English, but what they do instead in English to distribute all these things is to include it into our regionals. Because taking Yu-Gi-Oh! As an example, Duel Links is actually incorporated into the official Konami competitive circuit, and then when they cover Worlds, they always show off Duel Links for a while. Actually, Pokemon Go has also been incorporated into Pokemon coverage as well for Worlds, and that's really interesting. So I hope that when they release Vanguard Zero in English, they actually do push some kind of competitive circuit, because that's what can really help build these games and make them grow a lot, because people like competition, people like esports. That's why it's one of the bigger things to invest in these days. So that's why I think that would be a pretty interesting move on Bushiroad's part for the coming year. Then, I think every other year I kind of ask for oh, it'd be nice to have best of 3, it'd be nice to have 2-day tournaments, but sadly ever since the reboot, we can't really ask for that anymore, because they need to distribute the events, by the same location, having both games on the same weekend, and also the other 2 Bushiroad games. So that way it's not really possible to have 2-day events anymore, unless you squish all 4 games into one day, because then everybody's gonna ask for 2-day events. But yeah, unfortunately I don't think we can ask for that anymore. It's quite unfortunate, because then best of 3 goes out the window and all that stuff. I still feel like 2017 was the best competitive circuit the game has ever had. But speaking of competitive play, or just, well, playing this game in general, I guess, I want to talk about gifts. Now, at the time of recording this, we don't know any Gift 3, and I'll try to upload this before we know any Gift 3. But the kind of thing that I'm thinking about is that it seems like they want to introduce a new gift every year, and I think that's a good move. I think that's honestly a really nice move, because you can really diversify the playing field and the play style. But if they print anything like Axel 2, aka any gift that draws you a card outside of the PG that Protect 1 gives you, is a bad idea. Let's just be clear, Axel 2, I'm not sure, when it was revealed, it was oh, this is so good, because it was this will help the bad Axel decks. But then what we didn't realize is that it helps the good Axel decks so much more. I'm sure people realize it, but it wasn't the first thought that you have. And so I hope that when they introduce, here's the thing. When they introduce Gift 3, I hope that, for example, for Protect, it's literally just a resist circle. That's all they really need. That's kind of my hope there. For Force, that's the one I'm not really sure. I think what they could do for Force is do just Battle Door effect on a circle. I think that'd be pretty cool. We have Crit, we have Power, now we can give Battle Door, and it'll be the same as... They could even enable stacking it, so that the way it's worded is that when your opponent guards against the attack of this circle, they have to guard with 1 extra card. That way if you stack 2, they have to guard with 3, so that way it's like a hard leg on 1 circle. So, or hard leg is a bit different, but anyway, I feel like that'd be really cool, actually. Like for Force, if they did a battle door that increases with stacks for Force, I think that'd be really interesting because Force doesn't have that many attacks, therefore you can theoretically PG if it's big enough. But then, you know, with Battle Door, it can actually kind of add to that and increase Force's matchup against Protect in a way. Or, I mean, that's kind of debatable, I guess, because Protect has a lot of cards in hand theoretically anyway. So I guess that's still debatable, but that would be interesting. But most importantly for Axel, I've been thinking about this one because it's kind of hard because they need to essentially make a gift that is better than Axel 2. But at the same time, maybe not, because I think at first I was thinking like, oh, each gift should be better. But then when you think about it, the way that Force, for example, is worded is that neither Force 1 nor Force 2 are necessarily better than each other, they're just options that you have. And some decks can use both, some decks just prefer one. Like Mordred always uses one, but then DP can use one or two. You know, that kind of thing. Or like Bermuda, for example. But with Axel, it's come to the point where everybody uses Axel 2 no matter what. And then for Protect, everybody uses Protect 1 because Protect 2 just still isn't really good in almost any deck. I'm sure there can be some debates, and I'm sure there are some examples. Feel free to give them in the comments, but, you know, it's like the general consensus, right? So for thinking about the gift 3 types, like we've just said the first two, like for Protect, you would actually might want to give up a PG every turn for having Resist in a circle. That would make your field super annoying, and some decks would really profit off of that. Maybe even a bit too much. There might be some restriction needed there. But then for the Force one that we said, again, that's like, it's like some strategies will just benefit from that more. Maybe Riviere would actually benefit from Force 3 more. I know talking about Riviere right now is really scary, but you know, with Riviere, since their rear guards restand as well, it could be interesting, right? You know, it could be really interesting if they did that kind of thing. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about, right? So now we come back to Axel. And so with Axel, we have our 10k, we have our 5k, but draw 1. So what I'm thinking is, do we gift that gives plus 15k or maybe 20k for the cost of a discard? Now, the problem with this might be is that you literally, if you have empty hand, top deck a grade 3 and write it, you actually cannot, you acquire a gift and then you just can't do it. So that would potentially make problems. So I'm thinking the other way to do that is -1 drive check on your Vanguard, for example, for that turn that you placed that... No, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. That would literally have to be... that's really awkward. So basically... No, never mind. God. I really was set on the discard idea, but now that I randomly came up with the idea that, you know, there will be times when you can't discard. But maybe that could be interesting. Let's just come back to that. Maybe that could be interesting if you have to discard for a stronger Axel. So like a 15k Axel, but you discard when you acquire it. So then you're actually forced, or not forced, but you might actually have decks that play that gift that prefer to just play handless, like prefer to just lose their hand every turn just to acquire the gift for no cost, like every turn if they have the grade 3, like if they literally top that grade 3 every turn, because if they keep grade 3 from previous turn and then draw, then they'll have to drop it. So I feel like it's interesting. I think that like they might have to actually push it to 20k, simply because it's not going to be worth it taking it over Axel 2 right now. And the reason why people don't take Axel 1, for example, is because, oh, it's just an extra 5k and I don't get my card. So now it's like if you make it 20k, it's like, you think, is it worth losing a card for this much power that can get over defensive? Because that would be the main kind of like attraction of it, because even with 15k you are getting over defensive. It's with like 20k that you could get over 2. So then you might be able to bait the Axel players to thinking it's good, which it might be. It really, really might be. And decks like Grand Blue can't use it because they're Protect. And then I think decks like, for example, Vanquisher right now has effects that are like if you have like a certain amount of cards in hand, which is usually like 4 or less, and so then a deck like that could be actually potentially good. I'm even taking Vanquisher as a slight hint that that might be what Axel 3 is, but I feel like it could be really, really interesting. I think it's still hard to say what the Axel 3 could be, but I feel like it needs to be something that's like Not as oppressive as Axel 2, because god, no. But at the same time, it would come with big drawbacks. So like, I think you wouldn't play it in Premium Azel, for example, because it would still be better to just get Axel 2 instead. But then in other decks, it might be worth it. So I don't know, let me know what you guys think. What are your predictions for like Gift 3 types? But that's like one of my wish lists, I guess, for this coming year. And then the final one that I really, really want to emphasize is, please, let's have more fair metas. Like, thing is, with the Axel meta that we had for the entire BCS season, it was fairly diverse. It really was quite diverse. Like, when you think back at it, sure, Murakumo took up 20%, 25% every single month, but a lot of other decks were still viable. So he had a pretty diverse meta, and you can really take either one of them into standard. Premium, I will say, was fairly good, but it still felt a little bit high-rolly in a way, you know, with Azel and Katrina and stuff, where like, I don't know, it just didn't feel as good as the previous years, and most importantly, it doesn't feel as good as G. Like, I'm not trying to be just a G fanboy, even though I am, but in G it really felt like if you were good, you would win, no matter what. Even if your opponent was quite sacky, you could do things against that and about that, unless they really like quintuple crit you and you no-guarded or something. So I feel like I really want more fair metas. Not necessarily, like, the emphasis here isn't necessarily more balanced, but more fair. Like, decks that don't feel unnecessarily crazy. Like, with Hyuga, it just felt a little bit crazy. Now, Riviere obviously oomphs that up even more, but it's just like, I hope that we can have a power level that doesn't feel insane. I'm fine with there being fewer decks at the top if the top playing field feels fair. Like, that it doesn't feel like it's like, oh, I opened the nuts, and therefore, no matter how good you are, you will lose. You know, I want it to be more that even if a player A or player B opens nuts, the other player is able to still have a fighting chance. Like, that's kind of the problem with the Axel meta, is that if the Axel player opens nuts, whether it's against an Axel player or any other gift player, they kind of just win because they open nuts and they went first, for example. And I don't know, like, there doesn't feel like there's much counterplay. Like, if you're playing against Touchcast, it just doesn't feel like much you can do about it. Like, even if you are playing, like, removal clans and stuff, or, you know, Hyuga yourself and you went first, but then you died because you couldn't wait until your Hyuga turn. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, it's really hard to pinpoint what needs to be done to prevent this, because they, like, with Riviere, it's like, I don't know, it feels like we're going away from this, but then it's just like, I don't know, is it possible? Can we actually have a fair meta? Because, like, it feels like year one of the reboot felt pretty okay. Like, year one of the reboot felt like we had fair, strong decks. Like, looking back at Worlds, we had Murakumo, you know, we had Great Nature, we had, like, Shadow Paladin, etc. But the decks didn't feel necessarily unfair. Like, Zanbaku even itself didn't feel unfair. It's like, it just had a gimmick that could punish opponents, but it wasn't necessarily too strong. And even when Shirohige first came out, it still felt okay, but it's only after you start mixing in it with Hyuga and Shirohige and everything, it just like, hello? So year one of the reboot really felt more just, not as oppressive, I guess, in terms of the way that the cards were and the decks were. And same goes for Premium, I would say. Sure, you can say NLK Loop existed, but people saw through NLK Loop, and once they learned how to play against it, NLK Loop didn't really do much at Worlds, you know, and instead we had Azel. Like, sure, Worlds you can say ended on a not so high note, just because, like, last year, because not the one that just ended, but because Azel just, you know, a lot of people. But I feel like the year itself, until Azel came out, was quite okay. So that's kind of what I'm getting at. Obviously, Premium Collection for Premium will be a big factor in this, and this will actually be my final wish list for 2020, which is Premium Collection 2020, please have G-Guards. Please, for the love of God, have G-Guards, because having G-Guards that are good for every single clan, and I really mean good, for the love of God, do not give us, like, what the Narukami Stride was as a G-Guard, or, like, the equivalent of how bad it was in G-Guard form. Every clan needs to get a good one, please. Like, this will make the good clans better, but at least then the worst clans are still playable. Let us have, I don't mind if we have, like, just 3 decks at the top again, as I said, as long as the rogue tier that has a chance against them is, like, fat. It's, like, massive, like 11 decks or something, you know? that'd be great. That's kind of what a lot of games are, a lot of card games are these days, is just like a fat tier 2. And that's great because tier 2 decks usually have a fighting chance. And so, yeah, so Premium Collection, please have G-Guards, please have good support. And then honestly, I think Premium Collection, other than that, was okay. Like, it was a great set, everybody was hyped, and I hope that they managed to stimulate the same kind of hype as they did the first time around. So that's gonna be it for this video, for my little wish list for 2020. Let me know what you guys are thinking about 2020. What are your hopes and expectations with Gift 3 as well? There's a chance that this will be revealed at the product stream this Wednesday, so if that happens, then that's great. And then if I predicted them, then that's even greater. It's not the first time I predicted something, but we shall see. So I think that'd be pretty cool, but I guess we're gonna see how it is, you know, going into the future. There's still a lot of stuff that is unknown, especially with how the Shin arc will continue and what's coming after that, because they haven't said much. So we'll see how that goes. But without any further ado, I will close out this video. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.